Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of That Early Childhood Nerd. I'm Heather Burnt Santee. It's 82 degrees outside, but I'm freezing in my office, so I keep wrapping up. My guest today is Liz Hicks. And Liz and I met when I was doing some nerd book discussion groups a couple summers ago, maybe 2 or 3 summers ago.
First COVID.
Yes, right in there. Yeah, that's right. That's why so many people had time to do the book discussion. And we've been in touch on social media, and I'm always interested in hearing and seeing what Liz posts. So we've got a specific quote she posted that we're going to talk about. But first, Liz, I want to let you introduce yourself, share whatever you'd like to share with folks who are listening.
Okay, well, I'm here in Nova Scotia, and it is not 82 degrees.
Well, I'll trade.
Hang on a minute. I've got to put it into Fahrenheit for you guys. It's 26 plus 32 so it's 58.
Okay.
It's about 58
right.
degrees, beautiful. But it's spring. It's spring.
Uh-huh.
We have flowers.
Nice.
I'm originally from Britain. I was an elementary school teacher in Britain, so I got a lot of my training from there, but didn't want to teach anybody below the age of 8.
Oh,
I thought they were scary as hell. And because I did a couple of stints in practicum with primary mm-hmm. age, and whoa, they don't listen. But then I worked for my husband for a while, and then I met, and some of you probably know, but this author, Susan Stacy.
Oh, yeah.
So she and I are very good friends, and I met her, and she persuaded me, because I was an elementary school teacher, to come into a daycare locally to do this after school. However, I fell in love with the kids below 5.
Oh, good.
So she and I opened up our own part day program and worked together for about 5 or 6 years. Then she started doing her thing, and I stayed.
Mm-hmm.
So for 23 years, I had a part day program with 3 to 5 year olds, and that was it. I was in love.
Mm-hmm.
And would never go above that again, that age range again.
Right.
And then I got bored. So I ended up with a job called Partnerships for Inclusion, where I was going into centers in Nova Scotia, looking at quality of programs. So, doing ECAs and IDAs.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got special link scales here that look at inclusion.
Okay.
And so I suddenly realized, oh my goodness, people are not doing what I think they should be doing with children.
Welcome to the show.
Right. What are we going to do about that?
Uh-huh.
What can I do about that?
Mm-hmm.
And slowly, scaffolding, it's a long story. In 2008, I ended up with no job, but centers called me and said, we like what you do. We like your workshops. We like your professional development you offer. And we like you coming in and talking to staff. So would you continue? So that's the rest is history.
Great. What a great story. And I'm so glad you fell in love with early childhood. I think
I would. Oh my goodness. And of course,
great.
I got involved with babies and then toddlers and went, what? Why didn't I do baby and toddler care as well? This is ridiculous.
Yeah. That's my favorite age. I love them all, of course. Whoever I'm working with, I'm in love with them. But babies and toddlers are if I had my preference, my druthers, as my ex-mother-in-law used to say.
Was she British?
No. But she said it. Yeah. I would, just someone gave me a pot full of money, I would just open a nice place for babies and toddlers and just play and be happy and and care and love.
Caring. Yeah. I'm going to reference The Illuminating Care, Carol Garbadon Murray's book. That is just
amazing, isn't it?
Amazing. Yeah. And I keep saying, you got to buy
I know. I bought several loaner copies when it first came out, because I was like, I need to get this in people's hands, and if I have to buy it and let you borrow it, that's what I'm gonna do. But then many of them didn't come back to me.
Yeah, no, I've learned that lesson.
Yeah, so now I guess they're going to buy their copies now, but yeah, it really is amazing. She's been on this show many times to talk about it, so if folks are interested, check her out. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about, and you posted this. There's no like attribution for this quote, so if you know where it came from, I'll let you share that, but okay. So what it says, the title of the photo is Scaffold or Quietly Respect, and it's a little girl playing with dinosaurs, and it says, yes, the dinos are in her play. That does not mean I need to inundate her with dino knowledge and finger plays and songs. Because of the relationship I have with this child, I know the core of her play is her schematic need to order and sort. She had access to dinos, and so she found a way to meet her need with the dinos. She never invited me into this play, and there was no reason to interject my adult knowledge. Quietly observe and respect their play. I love a lot of things about this, not the least of which is the schema mention. But I want to start by just asking you, why, what did it mean for you when you shared it? Why was that something that you felt like was important for other people to see?
Well, it's actually a lady called Alice Hanscom.
Oh yes, and thank you for remembering to do that.
And it's she does a thing called Parenting with Joy. So it's real, partly because of COVID, but partly because of my work. We're seeing a lot and in Nova Scotia, we've got a new framework, and we've also just rolled out 3 or 4 years ago a pre-primary program. So it's like junior kindergarten, it's free for everybody. So a lot of ECEs just bailed and went to the pre-primary program, which took a lot of people out of childcare. So there was then accelerated programs put in, training programs.
To train and replace those who had left. Okay.
And then COVID hits. So training's now on this damn thing, right? So that relationship bit, that perspective taking, that opportunity to have conversation in a deeper way, seems to have just blown out the window. Plus there are no experienced mentors, or very few still in childcare. So what I was seeing out there, and it was happening before that, but it's got even worse now, is either people are suddenly teaching like crazy. So they see a child do something, and they're immediately there like a dirty shirt talking about, what are you doing? Oh, look at that. I see you doing this. And why are you doing that? And tell me more about that. And I want to say, shut up.
And that little girl wants to say it too, but she's not going to say it.
Or they're not doing anything. They're playing nicely, and they just sit back and they do the chores, they're doing the cleaning because of COVID, which I totally understand that, but because we had huge COVID regulations here that were just intrusive about, especially where learning was concerned.
Oh, really?
However, we've got what is happening. You've got those two ends. And people, when I ask them, why are you jumping in so quickly there? Oh, well, we have to teach.
Yeah.
That's what I'm told that I have to do in the training programs. That's the examples that are being given. And practicum, the teachers that they're getting feel as though they should be teaching the students, or these new teachers. So they're suddenly going into action with these kids instead of quietly sitting back and saying, I'm sitting back at the moment because I want to see what I can learn by just observing and quietly talking with the other student or other teacher about, what do you think is going on here? Where do you think we could go with this? Not yet.
Right. Thinking that themselves, not necessarily saying that to the children. Yeah. Yeah. I do think it's so hard for adults who are working with children we feel like we need to be always involved with every bit of it and always sort of leading it. And so it is really sort of, the word's failing me, but confusing, I guess, when we then suggest that, you could just watch. You don't have to be, it's the word teaching. For me, it's more of a passive sort of role than that always involved, always in charge role.
Totally agree. Yeah. And there's been a few things recently that have sort of connected with that. I've noticed vocabulary happening, like allowing children, I let them do this.
Oh boy. Mm-hmm.
And I have to stop myself reacting and saying, you're allowing them? Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because as soon as you said that, I understood, yeah, that's really sort of a power trip. But I just recorded an episode a couple of days ago where we were talking about schema play and schemas in play. And I kept using the word, well, we just need to allow it. We just need to allow play. And then we will see these kinds of things and children will get these valuable experiences. But yeah, there is still a lot of power in that word, isn't there?
Yeah. And I think that comes with the teaching piece, with talking too much to children. Yeah, I think I really thought about it really hard when Ann Pello was here. This is quite a few years ago.
I love her.
Oh, she's incredible.
Is she? Yeah, I imagine.
We were really, really lucky. We had her as a conference, and she did some work with communities of practice with people. And then the center I was working at the time, we had it at a retreat called Windhorse Farm, which is a forest that's ecologically farmed in the middle of nowhere, and it's just beautiful.
Sounds amazing. Yeah, she's been on the show once, and I felt like I'd been to church when I got done recording. But anyway, you have a story to tell.
And her vocabulary. Well, I was going to tell a story that she told, but I remember she talked about, she gave this example of children exploring leaves, and how would you react? And I sort of sat there and I thought, well, at this moment, I wouldn't. So I said that, no, I'm not going to do anything. And she smiled. And everybody else was saying, well, I would do this, and then I would do that, and then I would do this, and I would do that. And she said, you don't have to do anything. You just have to offer the materials again and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, oh, wow, right. I said the right thing. Well,
yeah. I found the cookie in the cabinet. I found what she was looking for. Yeah.
Right. But I'm going to link that to her story, and the goodness of rain, where she talks about that child that she was looking after for that year that she took out when she wasn't sure what she wanted to do. And it was in Seattle, and it had snowed, and it very rarely snows in Seattle. And she'd opened the door, and this little 18 months, she didn't say anything. She just let the 18-month look. And how many educators would do that? Right.
Yeah. Because sometimes it's from our own excitement, right? Yeah. Yeah. So just that quiet pause is so important. So that reminds me of a quote that I think is from, and I'm just gonna have to paraphrase it. I don't have it memorized, but I think it's from Sarah Smolansky, who's done a lot of play research here. And someone asked her which comes first, the belief in play or the play or something like that. And her answer was, well, if the adults don't believe in it, there's not going to be like real free play. And I think that's what I see. And I think part of it is because of the way we train teachers. I'm a college professor now, so I can be a little bit more bold in that assertion. But I think a lot of our teacher prep, whether it's in service or credentials or college degrees, teaches them that they should be teaching. Like there's not enough time, resources, conversation, books, reading about about play, even though we have all this, research, and we've got the children in front of us. If we would just pause and observe, like you're talking about, who could
Right.
teach us about it, but we don't quite trust it. So
But
it's hard to make that switch.
Yeah, but it's connecting them to their play.
Mm.
And I've been doing some workshops. A couple of the centers have been asking for workshops on play, and I go, I haven't you got it yet?
I know. Yeah.
So I always started off with playing with rocks.
Letting them play with rocks.
Just
rocks. Oh, I love
they
rocks.
don't know. And I just last week, I watched a couple of educators that hadn't a clue what to do.
Uh-huh.
You could see, they kept looking at me as though, well, what do you want me to do?
Uh-huh.
Just play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what do you want me to do? Just explore it.
Yeah. And they probably wanted to make something, like a product was probably what came to mind for a lot of them, right? Instead of just
and
that
a lot
exploration.
of people did do a product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lots of flowers.
Yeah, or names or something, spelling things out, I imagine might have been something too. Yeah, I've got a workshop that I do sometimes called Have We Forgotten How to Play? And it's essentially that adults in the room are supposed to be thinking about the ways they played as a child. And we just sort of engage in that and sort of revel in it when the memories are coming, when they have those memories and that ability to connect with it. And then at the end, we connect those memories to some, developmental domains or something, so that if there are people who need that connection between the learning I'm supposed to be teaching and what's happening in play. But a lot of them I find don't have like free play memories that are easily accessible for them. No. And I think that's really hard.
And if they do go to domains, it's usually intellectual domains. Yes. Or fine motor, gross motor. And recently it's been really bothering me is I've had to remind them, what about emotional and social development here? How does that represent? And this in particular, when we interfere, I sort of sat down and thought, well, what are they interfering with? So thinking. But also agency, the child's own agency, and the comfort level of playing. What is that child feeling at that moment? What emotions is that child working with? Are they has that material that they're playing with, and it made them brought a memory that they're working through? And how do we interrupt that? And when we interrupt that, what are we saying to them? It's not just that we've interrupted the play and they look at you and give you a dirty look, or they go, okay, here she goes again. Yeah.
I think about that sometimes. I don't know about Canada, but in the United States, there's been sort of a growing attention to social emotional learning. I would call it development, but we call it learning, SEL. But it's still very much presented as something the adults in charge of and teaches to the children through planned out activities. And I think about this example of this little girl playing with the dinosaurs and all the things a teacher could want to do with that. And I think about that from the child's perspective. The message they so often are being given is, your ideas aren't important. Your choice isn't important. Your interest and your play isn't important. And your ideas are not as good as my ideas. And that has to have an impact on emotional development for that child. There's,
so why bother?
Yeah. Exactly.
You're going to tell me what to do anyway, so why bother? So that, again, going back to the agency, that you've taken self-regulation away, you've taken agency away. So we all become these, automatons. We're just going to say yes. And that's what I like about Reggio, because I was so lucky to go.
Have you
7
been?
years ago now?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
But once isn't enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you bring that up, because I was just thinking as I was listening to you, it really comes down to our image of the child, doesn't it? Whether they're
Mhm.
a deficit or whether they're competent. And that's so much of what Reggio uh, is built around, is
Yeah.
an image of a competent child.
And the history about why they started it,
Uh-huh.
that they wanted, because they had fascism and communism, and they were they didn't want, they wanted children, human beings, to say no,
Mm-hmm.
to think.
Mm-hmm.
And Reggio gets children to think.
Yeah.
So I love that
Yeah.
phrase that they teach children. In my opinion, I don't agree with you,
Yes, I like
in
that.
my opinion.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's very healthy.
Yes.
In my opinion, go away. I want to play with these dinosaurs. You're getting
Yeah.
in my face.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't get annoyed when children do that to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. There's a story from when my youngest Josie was uh ooh, 3 maybe. And we were at my ex-husband was in grad school, so we were at some kind of grad school barbecue or something. And we're from Nebraska, and the Nebraska Cornhuskers are our football team, and it's a very big thing for you when you're in Nebraska. And so she had a Cornhuskers shirt on, and this guy just would not stop. He was like, "What about the green bean Huskers? What about the apple Huskers?" Like 6 or 7 things. And so I'm not saying this is the ideal response, but Josie's turned to him and said, "How about the shut your mouth Huskers?" And I think about that kind of whenever I see an adult peppering children with questions, when it's clear that the child is trying to do their idea,
Right.
try to act on their own um, ideas and initiative.
Well, I mentioned Deborah beforehand.
Yeah.
Our daughter, um, when she was in junior high, she was she's 43 now, so this was a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
She
Yeah.
was one of the first kids with purple hair and army
Excellent.
boots and long skirts and whatever. And of course, we called them the hat heads. All of the spotty types
Uh-huh.
were teasing her and
Oh.
bullying her actually.
Mm.
And one of them one day went down and looked at her boots and was sort of saying, "Oh, look at you, female, you got boots on." And she just turned, and I'm not going to say the word, but she
Okay.
said, "Oh, F off, loser." And people were really shocked. And I
Right.
said, no, don't be shocked,
Mm-hmm.
because she knows who she is
Right.
and how she is, even though she looks different.
Right. Right. And we want children to be able to advocate for themselves. And in fact, if it's a child who has been given a label of a disability or a delay or something,
Mm-hmm.
often one of their goals on whatever. So here it's an IEP, an individualized education plan. I don't know if that's what you guys would call it
Yes.
up there.
Yeah.
Often the goal is that they want the child to learn to advocate for themselves, but then we don't let them, or we feel like
No.
it's rude, or so like the stories that we both just told, obviously those were sort of extreme answers, but it's a good way to reframe for somebody what a child might be thinking or feeling when we're with good,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of how good our intentions are to be a
Right.
teacher. We're interfering. And we talk so much too about executive function and wanting children to be able to pay attention, but we interrupt them constantly with our scaffolding
Right.
and our teachable moments. And so we sort of develop a pattern of not being able to focus, and then say we want them
Well, it's
to
like
have that focus.
TV, right? We're in a society where TV's got ads every 10 minutes or even
Yeah.
faster, so people get up, they go to the bathroom, they go get a coffee.
Mm-hmm.
My husband can't sit through a movie anymore. Because he has to get up. So what are we doing with children? The children's TV is fast
Uh-huh.
moving. It's very rare. That's why Mr. Rogers was so
Yeah.
incredible,
Yeah.
that he knew that children really needed to sit with the same picture for the same scene, for a slow talking
Uh-huh.
man
Yeah.
And people were fascinated that children liked that, that they didn't need this.
Yeah.
But we're doing that, especially technology. It's constant, we're on board now, I've got to move on. What are we doing to human beings?
Yeah.
So shouldn't we give children that gift when they're with us in childcare, that we are just playing? We could, but they are just playing.
Yeah.
And I love that the loose parts that, that's been around for a while now, at least it has here in Nova Scotia, is beginning. And don't get me wrong, not everybody's got loose parts here, but that is changing the way people play, because loose parts don't tell you what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's another, I think that's another example of something that is really wonderful. True loose parts play, really wonderful. Children get engaged, they stay with it, they try out their ideas, but we are uncomfortable with that control. And so we have to turn it into, our own idea of an invitation. Yes. And the loose parts have to be beautiful and arranged and presented. And that's still very much an adult goal that we're working towards then. And it's just so interesting to see how we can, as a field, listeners probably get tired of me saying this, but we're so good at using euphemisms. Like loose parts becomes the euphemism because it's the new thing and it's popular and people are excited about it, but I'm not really changing what I'm doing all that much.
Oh, I had the biggest fights I had with people is, well, why don't you just put the loose parts in the middle of the table and see what happens? Oh, but it looks messy. If one more educator says it looks messy.
Yes.
Cut it out.
Time out for all of you. Yeah. I mean, I get, if an adult has some sensory, discomforts or issues, then I understand why some of that might be difficult. But just if you're just averse to mess, or if you're worried about what other people think when they look at it and it doesn't look like teaching, or it doesn't look like I'm the one with the ideas, it's really uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Well, my director will think I'm just sitting there doing nothing. Yeah. Well, then why don't you tell your director that you're not?
Yeah. Exactly. I just had this in a conversation too. You're hitting on so many things, Liz. For one, as a center director myself, when I was a center director, I didn't have time to be out looking and wondering why things looked messy or whatever. But also no one's firing anyone in childcare right now. We have such a shortage. No one's getting in trouble at work.
No.
So this is a really good time to embrace some of that and just practice getting really comfortable. If this is something you believe in, uninterrupted play, true loose parts play, children's agency and executive function, all those things, then connect that practice making that connection. So when people do look in, you might even just say, this might not look like what you expected it to look like. Here's why.
You just reminded me of a book on schemas. It was from Britain, and I can't for the life of me remember who wrote it, but it's about schemas and connecting to emotional development.
Oh, I need that. I need to find
fascinating.
that.
I'll send you the title.
Thank
I've got it upstairs. Because I do a lot of work on schemas, because that was one of those mind-blowing moments and totally changed the way I looked at emergent curriculum, right? About actions as opposed to the thing. But then when I found this book about emotions as well, that's again,
very interesting.
It was another mind-blowing. And she's very clear about she wasn't a big believer. What are you talking about? Schemas are connected to emotion. And she talks about self-regulation.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting to me.
And executive
I'm
functioning.
going through all the schema authors that I know that I recognize from the UK, but That's where
I won't do it right
that's
now.
where
But
I
if you
have to
stay
go for
on
my books.
afterwards, I'll
Yeah.
forget it.
Yeah, and we'll
Yeah.
post it either in the
Yeah,
comments
okay.
when this episode
Yeah.
comes out or in
But
the
it's
description.
really interesting.
Mhm.
So I found it fascinating. I wanted to talk about this too. Maria Montessori.
Mhm.
Now, I don't think of Maria Montessori as because people I think they interpret her incorrectly.
Yes, I do too.
And she's talking about agency and autonomy here. And the child who has never learned to act alone, to direct his own actions, to govern his own will, grows into an adult who is easily led, who must always lean upon others. I went, oh my God.
Right.
Why don't Montessori teachers know that?
Because we do have a lot of listeners who work in Montessori, and I know that it's very dependent on where you are and who you are individually. But I know,
I apologize, folks.
No. Don't.
I don't Montessori
mean that,
stuff.
but I do know that I also
Yeah.
have talked to a lot of people who work in Montessori places who don't even know Maria Montessori was a person. Like they don't even know that history about their name. They associated with a current style of teaching or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So
what
I know
curriculum
that
do you have? Oh, we're Montessori.
we're Montessori.
Yes.
Yeah. Kind of like being Reggio inspired because we have baskets on the shelf.
I used to say it's not Reggio if you've got those colored bottles on the windowsill.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. What else did you, when you were thinking about talking about this quote, were there other things you thought about that we haven't gotten to that you want to make sure we get to? I didn't prepare you for that question, but
that's all right. Well, it goes on. If anybody wants to find my the Facebook page where it's on, it does go on, and she says pause, always and often. Observe
always and
first.
often. I like that.
Always and often. Yeah. She says, notice what they're working on. Wait to see if they invite you into their play.
Oh.
Right. And a bit later, and there's another quote. It's that I found. It said, that you're invited in when they look at you.
Or hand you something. Yeah.
Or hand you something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and then of course she said, and just finish with joy and appreciation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So usually when we do an episode that's like really challenging a really prevalent habit, I tried to talk a little bit before we wrap up about a baby step, but I think that pause is just maybe the baby step that could be the starting point. Is when you feel that urge, stop for a minute and see what happens if you don't step in. What do you have any other suggestions for someone who wanted to try? I mean, other than that pause?
Pause. Observe, in whatever way is good for you, because it took me a while when I first started observing and writing down. Probably in the 90s, sometime in early 90s, I started, and now I can't stop.
Yeah.
Knowing that I know it's a pain in the to keep writing, but just always have pen and paper with you and just write it down. That's going to help you pause.
Yeah. And I think for some folks who are so trained for assessment and observing for them just automatically hooks into a checklist or some sort of skill deficit or strength that we need to be looking at. But we're just talking about watching and just really writing what you see, or thinking about it a little bit before you move in. Right.
But that's where authentic assessment really comes to the fore.
Which leads to authentic.
You've got it there, right? You've got those notes, your own thinking, and so that hence the link to pedagogical documentation. It's when I first started doing this work, I was so lucky. We had a conference with Margie Carter and Deb Curtis.
Oh boy, yeah.
I know. And I was on the committee that was organizing the conference, and I went. Somebody said, "Who's going to look after Margie and Deb?"
Yeah.
I'll do it. So Margie asked if she could go to some of the daycares in the Halifax area here. And I said, sure, I know enough people here that they'll have no problems. So I had her in the car for a whole day going around.
Wow, that's fun.
And she said, what do you do? And so I was telling her, and I said, what's one of your challenges? And I said, well, because I'm sort of a pedagogical leader, in centers, consulting, coaching, mentoring. And she said, okay, I've got a tip for you. Don't talk about them, talk about the kids.
Oh, yes, that is good. Yeah.
What are the kids doing?
Uh-huh.
How are they reacting? How are they playing? What do you think they were thinking? To the educator. And I've taken that to heart, and it works. It works beautifully.
I'm writing it down because I'm gonna offer that even for our, like, my early childhood students who go out and do observations. I'm gonna offer that differently now. That's so good.
Well, she's such a wise woman, isn't she?
That is the truth. Yes.
And Deb Curtis said her most intellectual thing she's ever done is work with infants.
Yeah.
And that was another, oh, yes.
Right.
Because it's all about watching, right?
With infants, yeah. Oh, another good way to think about things. That's what they do. Every time I read anything that they've done, or now Deb did a book with Nadia Haboneta, and and Margie did one with Ann Palo, and they're just really so thought-provoking and inspiring. Yeah.
Are you doing anything with the Row Initiative, Heather?
No, not really. Are you? That's so exciting. Yeah. So the Row Initiative is reimagining our work, and it's through Exchange Press, right? Or is it just through with Margie and Deb?
Well, it started off just through, as a committee, right? So there's conveners.
Yeah.
Those two loose. I don't know how to say.
Oh, yeah.
Christine Norwood, Chris Whitmire, Cecilia Scott Crawford, and Pam Bolton. Yeah. There's so I had read the book, and I had contacted Ann Pello and said, whoa, from teaching to thinking.
Yes.
And she said, oh, we're thinking of starting this initiative. Are you interested? And then we got myself, Sue Stacy, and another girl called Carrie Melson got invitations to be to be facilitators of communities of practice. So we now have communities of practice here on the East Coast.
I love that.
That we meet on a monthly basis. We're sort of working our way through the book. Some of them have finished. The other two have finished the book. My group hasn't.
It's heavy. Like, it's wonderful, but it's a lot. It's not one that you just pick up and read straight through and put down.
And you go off in different directions.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, we started on chapter 5. That's all we've got to in a year and a half. and we were totally engrossed with, who are we as a community? Who do we want to be as ECAs?
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
so,
great.
and everybody is, really enjoying this community of practice to be able to talk to like-minded people.
Yeah.
Like you.
It sounds really amazing. I remember when I got the book, I was like, I have to have a book group about this. I have to talk to other people about it. But it is like, it's a commitment to do that. It's not just like the summer book discussions we did that first COVID summer, where we would read one and discuss it a couple of times and read another and discuss it a couple of times. It just wouldn't work that way. So,
well, the poetry they've put in it, we've spent whole evenings on just the poems.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, this is turning into a podcast second episode about just that book, From Teaching to Thinking now. So I'm gonna wrap this one up, but you're welcome back if you want to talk about some stuff from that book. That would be great. But thank you for being on, Liz. This has been fun. I thought it would be, and now I know it really was.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I was scared when you asked me, but then I thought, oh, what the hell? I know Heather.
Yeah.
She's great.
Yeah. We're very relaxed here, but also I like to think very smart and making an impact. So I thank you for being part of that. We're going to wrap this episode up
Thank you.
though. Thanks, Liz. Thanks everybody for listening, and come back again for another episode of That Early Childhood Nerd.